Thanksgiving is the meal of the year, and for me, the star of this meal is not the turkey, it's the sides. However, there are some really popular Thanksgiving sides that I just do not vibe with. And at the very top of that list is sweet potato casserole. Sweet potatoes can be very good, but on their own, they are very sweet. And in a sweet potato casserole, many recipes add sugar to sweet potatoes. They add sweetened pecans, and then they add marshmallows on top. And then we're calling this a savory dish? I don't love the dish, but some people do. And as the host, you sometimes have to serve dishes you don't love. But today, we're gonna solve that by making this dish less sweet. The most savory version of a sweet potato casserole you've ever had. And that's what we're making today. If you follow me, then you know that I just believe in never settling for a bad meal. And thankfully, OnePlus, a flagship Android smartphone maker, felt exactly the same way as I did. So we teamed up together to ensure that you don't deliver any bad side dishes to your guests this Thanksgiving. I use all sorts of cameras to shoot this show. Sometimes a smaller camera just works better for me. And today's show is going to be made in part with the help of OnePlus and its Hasselblad camera technology built right in. Hasselblad is a legendary brand of camera in the camera industry, and generally it's just too expensive for a creator like me to access. To have Hasselblad technology built into the OnePlus allows me to be able to use great camera technology in a small format to help me film my show. So let's just jump right into it. First thing we want to do is get our sweet potato roasted. They're going to take an hour, so we want to get them into the oven and let them start cooking first. I've rinsed these real quick, just threw them on some wax paper. First what we're going to do is just poke these with a fork. Let me show you a little bit of behind the scenes. I usually use a mouth cam, but today I'm going to use the OnePlus. And my friend Dylan, who you may have seen make ice cream on the internet, showed me this little getup to shoot content with a phone on your body like this. And as you'll see, I have about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. I'm gonna sneak in about a ½ pound or 1 russet potato. You may think that's not gonna do much, but I promise you, that is gonna be an essential stage in unsweetening this sweet potato casserole. It's gonna change the whole dynamic of the dish. Then we just wanna coat these with a little bit of olive oil and some salt and get it into a 400-degree oven. Now we have another savory element that we're gonna work on for our sweet potatoes. It's gonna be a nice garlic confit. So we're gonna take our garlic heads and just kind of get the cloves out. All you wanna do is slice the root end off of the garlic. Then you can lightly bang them out of their shells, peel them, and add all the garlic cloves to a small pot. Then we're gonna take a few sprigs of thyme and a few sprigs of sage, and we're gonna tie those tightly into a bundle. Then add those to the pot. Then we wanna add some olive oil to the garlic and herbs, just enough to cover. Let's toss this 1+9 into slow motion mode, and at 1080p, 240 frames per second, the OnePlus is able to handle motion beautifully at very slow speeds. Then we want to get that pot onto the stove, bring it up to a very gentle simmer, and then drop that heat down to very low. And we want to cook this over a long period of time very slowly. If it's bubbling too fast, just drop the heat a little bit. You could do this in the oven, but the potatoes are roasting too hot in there. If you can maintain a very gentle simmer like this, it should take about an hour for the garlic to get soft and roasty like this. You'll know it's done when the garlic is so soft that it'll just sort of fall apart when you play with it. Now it's time to check on the sweet potatoes. It's been about an hour. Now you want to pull the potatoes when they're fork tender. And if you want a foolproof way to know what exactly that feels like, take the internal temperature, and you're looking for anywhere from 205 to 212 degrees, and that's a perfectly cooked potato. You can also just run a thermometer or a fork through it, and if there's no resistance whatsoever, that's also a good way to tell they're done. These are fork tender now. They're just a little too hot to handle, so I'm gonna let them chill for a second. Off to the side. Then we can prepare our crunchy topping of pecans. We've got about 2 cups of chopped pecans. I'm gonna get them in there. Need about a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna take a 1/4 cup of that garlic oil, and I'm gonna use that to cook the pecans. Some salt. And then I know I'm trying to limit the sweetness, but pecans really do benefit from a little bit of maple syrup. So just 2 tablespoons. Now you can absolutely adjust the sweetness to your tastes. I know some people are gonna want a sweeter casserole. You can adjust this recipe to kind of dial up or dial down the sweetness. Here's another example of that beautiful 1+9 slow motion at work here, mixing these chopped pecans. Set this off to the side. The skin should come right off. And if you cook them right, they should just sort of fall apart in your hand. So just go through, peel off all the skins, mash up all the potatoes, and then you want to throw in a few tablespoons of unsalted butter and then season with salt. Salt is a counterbalance to sweetness, so it will tame that sweetness a bit as well. Give it all a good mash. We're gonna let that cool a little bit while we puree our garlic confit. We just want to spoon the garlic into a large, tall, narrow container. You could also use a blender for this. And then add enough of that oil that it was cooked in to cover. Then we're gonna toss in 4 to 5 Calabrian chilies. Spicy is another way to neutralize sweetness. I'm throwing them in whole. If you want to remove the seeds, you can. Add a little bit of salt and then blend that until it purees into a thick, almost mayo-like consistency. Then we're going to pour that directly into the potato mixture along with 1 egg. But before you add the egg, make sure you taste for seasoning one last time. It tastes great. So I'm going to add that egg and I'm just going to work that in with a little bit more of that garlic oil. And I'm just going to mash it until it's nice and creamy. Then you want to pour the whole mixture into a casserole dish. I believe this is like 6 to 8 inches or a 2-quart casserole dish. And then top with those pecans. I like to leave a little potato border around the edge of the casserole dish. We're going to broil this later, and if there's nuts around the edges, sometimes they can burn. Into about a 400 degree oven for about 40 minutes to an hour, depending on your oven. Now while that bakes, we're going to make our marshmallow topping, which if you haven't figured out by now is going to be whipped ricotta. It's going to be about 2 cups whole milk ricotta. And to that we're going to add salt and a little bit of the reserved garlic oil, but you can use regular olive oil as well. Now we're going to season to taste with salt, and then we're going to use the olive oil to get a certain consistency on the ricotta. We want it thick and creamy, almost like a frosting it. So I'm just going to add olive oil until I get there. And here's another example of the convenience of the ONE+. Getting a shot like that in focus with a regular camera is nearly impossible. And the slow motion is as creamy as this ricotta is. But to make it look like marshmallows, we're going to need to get it into a Ziploc bag or a piping bag and hold that off to the side until the casserole is done baking. After about 40 minutes, I can see the nuts are toasted and the potatoes are starting to brown around the edges. So I can go ahead and take the ricotta and just pipe these little peaks along the top as if they were little mini marshmallows. Making sure you're covering the pecans so they don't burn. And as you can see, we have what we call in the business a blowout in the bag. And that's totally fine. Just gonna be extra careful and slowly make my way through piping out the ricotta. And if you like the marshmallows, by all means use it. But if you don't, you now have an option to make something a little bit different. I'm just gonna snap a quick photo. Now this is gonna go under the broiler until it's just nicely browned on top, like a marshmallow would be. We want to get this really close up to the broiler. We don't want a huge amount of space. We want to see where it's starting to brown first, and then be able to move it around to create a browning that is even across the entire casserole. It's going to require you moving it around a bit. The ONE+ is coming in clutch again with these tight shots, and the battery is great. The phone has lasted this entire shoot on 1 charge, but if I needed to charge it, the ONE+ 9 has the fastest charge in North America with its warp charge that gets you fully charged in 29 minutes. Now I've got a little bit of some spicy microgreens and some baby watercress. If you have regular watercress, that works too. A little bit of bitterness, some greenery, I think the dish needs. You could of course serve it just like this, but I think a little greenery goes really well with the dish. Snap a quick shot on the ONE+ of the finished product. Looks great. We can just plate it up with a spoonful of the casserole, a little bit of those greens, and a final touch of that garlic oil on top. We did it, guys. It doesn't lose the essence of sweet potato casserole, but now the sweetness is way tamed down and the savoriness is dialed up. That one russet potato, that garlic oil, the ricotta, all of these things are playing a part in making this a palatable and delicious thing that I would love to serve and eat on Thanksgiving dinner. Thanks to ONE+ for helping me upgrade this Thanksgiving side. If you want more awesome upgrades to Thanksgiving sides, click the link down in the description. ONE+ has a few more recipes they want to share with you. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.